Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Today I am here with Perry from Found, and we actually found each other on LinkedIn and started having a conversation about what does banking look like for entrepreneurs and small business owners and what is better ways to do that. So, Perry, I'd love for you to tell us one, a little bit about what you do at Found, and then
Yeah,
about what Found is and why people should be happy that they found it.
I love any opportunity for a found fund when talking about Found. Kabrina, thanks for having me on. Perry Nunes here. I'm on the growth team at Found. So my job is really to raise awareness about Found's tools for small business owners, to educate small business owners on best practices on running their business, and try to grow the amount of businesses that can run using Found. Um, and so Found at a high level, I mean, we're a banking and bookkeeping platform for small business owners. And so right now, the existing tool set for running your business is pretty scattered. Like a lot of folks will use a personal account at worst. Maybe they'll have a business bank account, but then have a separate tool for bookkeeping and a separate tool for invoicing. And then taxes are layered on top of that, and it's like a huge headache. And so we thought, why not build like a go-to super simple financial app for owner operator, single owner businesses that not
Oh,
only have to run their business but also have to be the CFO and the CMO and the chief revenue officer, and so why not consolidate that into one app? And so that's what we did.
yeah.
Where we offer a business checking account, and then we have all these embedded features to help you auto save for taxes, identify and categorize expenses that could be tax deductions, and then so in real time, updating the estimate of what you owe, and then things like paying, getting paid, and managing all the paperwork that comes with that.
Mhm. Yeah, and so I know we had talked about originally on our first conversation about some of these pieces that make it so much easier for businesses. So I'd love to for you to walk us through some of those use cases because I know that people are thinking, "Oh my gosh, this is just another thing that I have to think about, another
Oh,
software I have to learn and more buttons, and I already hate QuickBooks." So
yeah.
give us a run through of like how this would make somebody's life so much easier.
Yep, definitely. I'd say one theme that runs throughout our app. There's two themes, but one is automation, and so thinking through how you can like set up systems using the app to then let like budgeting and expense management and tax savings happen kind of on autopilot. So one feature, really cool feature that a lot of our users speak highly of is something called pockets, where essentially within your singular business checking account, you can create kind of sub pools of money that you can visually see with a different icon and a color and like a sub balance, how much money you've set aside for. And then every time you're getting income into your account, you can set up what we call a deposit allocation. So you'll take a percentage of all income into your account and automatically set it aside into that separate pool of money. So
Okay.
this is really helpful, I think, one for taxes. So by default, all found accounts come with a taxes pocket, and so what that means practically is that a lot of small business owners don't realize that they have to be setting aside money for taxes because it's not being withheld from their paycheck, and they need to be paying ideally on a quarterly basis. And so what you can do is set like either a smart percentage that Found recommends, or set your own custom percentage of percentage of your income to put into a taxes pocket. It's still in your Found account. You can still access it if you need to, but it's like kind of a visual representation of a tax estimate of what you'll likely need to pay come the quarterly deadline. And then similarly, a lot of folks will create pockets for other, business categories or other savings goals. We see a lot of folks create things like maybe gear and equipment. We work with a lot of like photographers and videographers who set up equipment savings goals and say, hey, I want to save $10,000 for gear and equipment. So after taxes, after setting aside money in the taxes pocket, I'll automatically set aside 15% of all income into a gear pocket.
Mhm.
A lot of folks will pay a lot of subcontractors. They're working with other self-employed people that are not employees, but they're paying them over that $600 threshold that they need to report their income to the
Yeah.
IRS, and so they'll set aside say 20% of post-tax income from their account into a contractor payments pocket. And so what that allows you to do is like visually see how much money you have allocated for different parts of your business. So you're not spending cash on maybe impulse buys when you then don't have enough money to pay taxes. So
Yes.
that's a really big one.
Yeah, I
Cash
love
flow
the
based budgeting.
automation piece. Yeah, it makes
Totally.
it a lot easier. I know anybody who's familiar with like the whole Ramsey idea of how they put things together for financial peace,
Yep.
that was something that I learned early on in my business, and the bank account that I had, they thought I was a crazy person when I was like, I want each of these to have a different account so that I can see where things are. It's not just in
Yeah.
one lump sum somewhere.
Totally. And we have a design team who's been hard at work to make this all very like calming and soothing, and like it's a very simple, colorful app. And so our hope is that there's a lot of like we're trying to get to the psychology behind savings and business
Mhm.
finances, and trying to make it so like opening your found account and checking in on your finances doesn't feel like you're getting lost in like a maze of of buttons and form fields and things like that. It's super simple.
Mhm.
Um, so I'd say automation really comes into play with like building like, well, we like to say cash flow based budgeting. So you're budgeting based off the cash coming in to make sure you're not spending more than you have coming in. A second big one, which I think is like a really big point of delight with the app, is automated expense categorization, and then updating your tax estimate in real time as you categorize expenses. Because as a small business owner, every business expense, every qualified business expense is an opportunity for a tax deduction to lower your taxable income. And so
Mhm.
we have an activity tab, which essentially is like a transaction level view of all income and expenses in your Found account. So as you spend on your Found debit card or you import transactions from another app, you'll have all those expenses in your app. And you can set up rules and say, hey, any expense from the Apple Store or from like Starbucks or from a gas station vendor, categorize it as this tax deductible business category.
Mhm.
And then in real time, as you categorize it, we'll say by categorizing that expense of $80, you save X amount on your taxes. And so it allows people and incentivizes people to um, on an ongoing basis stay on top of expense categorization, and
Mhm.
then does all the math in the background to say, hey, at the end of the day, like this is an updated estimate of what you'll owe for taxes, because
Yeah.
no one wants to be surprised come tax day.
Exactly. The gamification piece is a really intriguing one, especially for the finances part, because,
Totally.
like you said, no one necessarily wants to go into their finances and know what's happening. We just want to make money. We don't actually want to deal with the money. So that's always a really interesting thing for me. The other thing that you mentioned that I think that a lot of our listeners, and I just want to point out for people who are listening to this, whether you're listening live or to the recording, is if you read Mike McAllowitz, that whole idea of profit first, this is a
Yep.
really great way to do this. So for our audience that are accountants or bookkeepers who have people who are wanting a profit first business, and if you're not familiar with that, that's by Mike McAllowitz. That is something that is really easy to do with your guys' system because of the way
Yeah.
that you can bucket things so easily and be able to look at those. And if for a lot of this, that book could actually be almost a guide of how to set up your account when you first start it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, we're really compatible with Profit First. We actually have a few resources on our resources center too. So if you type found Profit First, you'll see a nice handy guide of saying what Profit First is, why it can help your business, and then how, in particular, pockets can be arranged in a way that enables you to carry out that strategy.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, we'll grab that link from you and then we'll put it in the show notes for this and in the comments for those of you watching on social. That way you guys can go and look at that and say, okay, well, here's exactly the buckets that I need to have because I know my creatives, they're going to go, oh my goodness, I can have any bucket that I want. And then there's going to be too many buckets and then there's going to be
Right.
nothing in the main account. So
Totally.
having that guideline and those bumpers to get you started and then building out from there, I think is very valuable. As we wrap up, is there anything else that you want to share that you're like, this is something that is really a great feature of Found or something that
Yeah.
people want to know?
Two things. One's a feature, and one's more of a like a macro point or like a how to get started point. Feature wise, I mentioned paying contractors, and we consistently hear. We started as a banking and taxes solution, and then we consistently heard that a piece of the puzzle that a lot of small business owners struggled with was managing contractors, oftentimes many contractors, and not only paying those contractors, but then anytime they were making a payment to a contractor over $600. They had to go through the process of requesting a W-9 form to get tax information from that contractor, and then come end of January, end of the tax year, sending them a 1099 to report that. And it was like a lot of folks didn't realize, one, they needed to do this, and two, it was a really manual process to like chase these tax forms from contractors they worked with a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've increasingly built out what we call a contractor management center as a tab within the Found app, which allows you to, as you're paying a contractor, to send a contractor packet, which is a digital W-9 form requesting their tax information. And then as they complete that, or you can send reminders if they haven't completed it, or enter it manually, you can then have it in one spot, kind of like a ledger of all the different contractor payments you've made, and then can actually populate a 1099 to send come tax time. So we've heard from a lot of our users that it was a highly requested feature, and we've heard a lot of really positive feedback from folks who work with a lot of contractors.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing I'll say is, people oftentimes have maybe a hesitancy to say like, hey, I have my way of doing things, whether that's like a basic way of a spreadsheet in a personal bank account, or whether that's using QuickBooks in an established bank, but I don't really want to like try out something new because I don't want to rip out all that process. The thing I'll say is like it's free to sign up for a Found account, and it's also, there's no credit check, there's no minimums, there's no required monthly fees. Like it's truly, if you want to open an account, put a little bit of money in it, poke around. We have some tutorial videos on YouTube that can show you how to really get the most out of your account. I encourage folks to just start with like the first step, and then as you play around with the app and get familiar with it, you can kind of get comfortable with like, hey, I want to start maybe sending invoices through Found, and then increasingly, if you see it's a fit, then you can move more and more of your financial life there. But it doesn't have to be this big, painful, like one weekend I'm just gonna like close my bank account and move all my money over. It can be an incremental, kind of gradual thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those of you who are listening who haven't quite made it from personal account over to business account, this is a good excuse as we're starting, we're still fresh into third quarter, moving that stuff over and saying, okay, I'm going to just use the rest of the year to practice and then get a really good start at the beginning of the year of everything is somewhere else so that you don't have to do that yucky at tax season, try and figure out what was what throughout that whole time. Because I know a lot of people that do that.
For sure. And something we've started talking to a lot of our customers about is having like a weekly date with your money, or like a weekly date with Found. And
Mhm.
so a lot of our like kind of our super users are saying like, I love Found because every Monday morning I sit down with my morning coffee, I check the reports on my profit and loss, I categorize the expenses that weren't automatically categorized, and then I have like a very clear snapshot of how I'm building towards savings goals, and like what my cash flow situation looks like. And it's like a way to kick off the week that feels like in 20 minutes I can open Found and have like everything in one place, versus trying to like chase a bunch of different numbers in a bunch of different places.
Absolutely. And it's such a good way to measure, because if you're not measuring something and knowing exactly what the numbers are saying, it's really hard to grow it.
Totally.
Mhm. Awesome. Well, thank you, Perry, for joining us today and just walking through this whole process with us. If you are watching the replay and have any questions for Perry, or are not sure about if this is the right fit for you, there will be some links in the live for you so that you can go ahead and go look at Found and see what it looks like and try it out like Perry suggested. Or you can go ahead and drop a question in there and I will make sure that those get to Perry. And if we correlated enough of them, we'll go ahead and have him on again and answer all of those questions for you. So again, thank you so much for being here, and we will see you guys tomorrow.
Thanks, Kabrina.